What is up, everybody? We are back with our team reviews, and we are on to the Los Angeles Chargers. I think we're halfway through. I think we're officially. This is the second half of the team, so we're getting there. I think we got about 15 more to go. We're on to the Los Angeles Chargers. Dad, big expectations for the Chargers this year, or
Yeah,
are they going to
biggest
disappoint like
decision
always?
is they better think about move back to San Diego.
Yeah, that'd be nice, but
LA ain't cutting it.
nope. I mean, it's a nice stadium, but arena or whatever you want to call it. Um, but yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice. But there are a lot of fantasy relevant players on the team, which is good to see. One of the better offenses. Will be interesting to see how different the offense is this year with Kellen Moore. So we're going to get into it. Again, we're approaching this from a redraft fantasy point of view, but we'll always throw in real life football, dynasty football stuff. So kind of as this comes up, and we always approach things from a half PPR point of view, but you can apply it to whatever settings you play in. If you still play in standard, you're kind of in the stone age of fantasy football. So, but as you can see, depth chart here, starting as always with the quarterback position, Justin Herbert. Good at football, had the greatest rookie season by any quarterback ever in terms of stats wise. He finished QB9 that year as a rookie, which is pretty amazing. And then he went all the way up to QB2 in 2021, which was a little down year for quarterbacks, but he was QB2. And then last year, he actually had his worst fantasy finish of his career. He was QB11, a lot of it due to just lack of touchdowns. He still threw for 4,800 yards last year. He just had only 25 touchdowns, so he had over 30 the two previous years. So that's kind of what brought him down. Dad, where are you comfortable taking in a one QB league? Where are you comfortable taking Justin Herbert? Do you want to get him in the fourth round, fifth round?
So assuming all the other guys that we talk about, Lamar and Hurts and Fields and things like that. So Mahomes. So Justin Herbert fits somewhere after those guys. So yeah, if he's there in the fourth round, for the most part, I'm a quarterback early guy. So in my drafting, so I wouldn't have a problem picking this guy. 4,700 yards, new offensive coordinator, his receivers and things like that. I just hope things aren't getting stale there with the team or anything like that. So, but I would definitely pick or could pick him at just about any point early in a draft.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you there. You said you're kind of a quarterback early guy. I'm a little bit more. I want to wait, or I want to get value. I don't want to pick them just because generally, besides last year was a little bit of an anomaly where if you didn't have a top four quarterback, you were kind of screwed. Just how valuable they were. Normally, it's more like there's not much difference between 1 and 7, and then there's not much difference between 8 and 15, like in terms of what they're actually bringing to the table. So yeah, I mean, if you want Justin Herbert, you're probably going to have to get him in the third or fourth round. His ADP is 43rd overall, so that's middle of the fourth round. So yeah, fourth round is probably where you have to take him. Which again, if that's the direction you want to go for it. The guy could finish as a top 5 quarterback very easily. It's interesting. Justin Fields is actually going after Herbert, which is a little interesting there. I think people are a little worried about, Fields, can he do it again type of thing. the one criticism I have with taking a guy like Herbert or even Burrow in so high in the fourth round, third or fourth round, is that with these non-rushing quarterbacks, besides Patrick Mahomes, really, you can get some variance in terms of you can get these low touchdown years. You can get these years where they only throw 25 touchdowns and they don't have the rushing production. So then you get a QB 11 year from them, which is it's really going to hurt you if you get a QB 11 finish from your fourth round quarterback pick. That's not ideal. Yeah, it's really not ideal. So I'm just looking at a draft I'm doing, a slow draft here. Herbert went 404. So right around where ADP has him. So it's kind of where you have to take him. But like you said, could have a bounce back here. The biggest thing in his favor is if his weapons stay healthy, he should be good. You got Keenan Allen, you got Mike Williams, you drafted Quentin Johnston, who's essentially the QB or wide receiver 3. You got Joshua Palmer, who's your 4th receiver, which is a good option. You got one of the best receiving backs in the game. You got a solid tight end in Gerald Everett, which we're going to get to all these guys. So, and then you look at Kellen Moore coming over, and Kellen Moore, when he took over as the offensive coordinator of the Cowboys, Dak went from a 22, 23 touchdown a year guy, 3,800 yards, and he jumped to a 30 touchdown, 5,000 yard guy from Kellen Moore's offense. So things to be excited about, I think, with Herbert, with Kellen Moore at the helm. Hopefully they push the ball down the field. That could kind of negatively affect the next guy, running back Austin Eckler. Has been a stud in fantasy football basically since 2019, I believe he's kind of been a stud. The last 2 years he's been one of the best, if not the best. And again, looking at it from a half PPR point of view, Austin Eckler was the running back 1 last year. He finished with 6 more points than Christian McCaffrey. And in 2021, he was the running back 2. That's Austin Eckler's last 2 years in the NFL. And again, Austin Eckler, you're in the first round in a half PPR league. Like, where's the farthest he should fall? Should he fall past pick 5 or 6? If you think about, you got Jefferson, CMC, Chase, Kupp, Bijan, Eckler, like where's Eckler going? There's 6 players I mentioned. Should he be going definitely in the top 6?
Yeah, don't you get a little nervous about, the touchdowns are pretty serious, the pretty good the last 2 years, and that's why he goes so high. So I guess we're assuming that he's going to have another multiple, double digit at a minimum touchdown year when we say he goes that high. Plus, I'm sorry, his receptions and he does his rushing is always up there and stuff like that. But if one of those 3 categories takes a dip, who knows? But if you're going to go early on a guy, absolutely 5 or 6, that's might as well do it. I can't remember if he's ever been hurt. I don't think so.
2020, he missed 6 games that year. He got hurt in the middle of the season. Yeah. It's tough with Eckler because he's not going to get 127 targets like he had last year and 107 catches. He's not getting that. I can see closer to what he had in 2021, 94 targets, 70 catches. What's weird is he only had 70 less yards that year, even though he caught 37 less passes. So his yards per reception were way down last year. So there's that. The touchdowns, always a concern because, like you said, he's led the league in touchdowns the last 2 years. He has 38 total touchdowns over the last 2 years. And it's always hard to bank on, especially 15 plus touchdowns. He is in 2019. He had 11. 2020 he was hurt. He only had 3. But he's kind of shown he is kind of a touchdown guy. 3 of his 4 years he has double-digit touchdowns. 3 of his 4 years is kind of like being a part of the offense. So sometimes you just get these touchdown guys. We've seen them. So I agree with you. I can see the catches definitely coming down, and I can see 12 touchdowns instead of 20 touchdowns. But here's the thing. How many running backs are there that do everything, that catch and run the ball? There's McCaffrey. There's Eckler. You can throw Saquon in there. Like, who else are we saying are those guys that can, really do it at an elite level or running and catching the ball? It's not many of them. So that's where his value comes from. And, but I don't know. It is a little bit. So are you saying, Dad, so you're definitely taking Jefferson, McCaffrey, Chase, and Cooper Kupp if he's healthy? You're taking those 4 guys over Eckler for sure?
Yeah, I think so.
What about Bijan? Are you taking Bijan over Eckler?
Yeah, now we start talking talking about gambling, playing cards, heads or tails, that type stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind, hey, I wouldn't mind the new guy.
Yeah. Yeah, in PPR, I can see taking, even Tyreek Hill, and if you want to make a case for Travis Kelce over Eckler, I can see that. Half PPR, I think I still have Eckler up there as like a top 5 guy. Currently, he's being drafted 4th overall in half PPR. So,
4th?
People 4th overall, yeah, in PPR as well. In PPR as well. Yeah, but I'm not going to argue with anyone. Like, what's interesting about this year, it really feels like if you have like a top 5 or 6 pick, you're going to get, I feel comfortable with any of those, Justin Jefferson, McCaffrey, Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Austin Eckler. You can even throw Bijan and Travis Kelce in there, and you get to 7 or 8, right? Like, there's just any of those guys you can beat. I mean, besides Kelce, finishing as the number 1 player, any of those guys that I just listed off. So that's what's kind of nice about this year. There's not a lot of times it seems very top heavy. Like last year, it was like Jonathan Taylor or Christian McCaffrey, and then not a lot after that you weren't sure about, So it's a little less clear cut this year. Just to know their names: Joshua Kelly, Isaiah Spiller, Larry Roundtree, 3 guys that have been there for at least a year or 2. They always seem like they want to get someone else involved, but they never really do. No one steps up. I mean, I think Josh Kelly looked okay at times last year. Any of these guys, Dad, like, are you interested in taking a shot like very late in drafts just in case Eckler gets hurt, or are you just waiting until that happens and going on the waiver wire?
Man, we're on our 3rd different. We've watched the Chargers, thinking, all right, this is the year they're getting a guy to back up Eckler. They're going to have 2 running backs, and still hasn't happened. I think Spiller was a 3rd round draft choice, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think a couple of these guys were. I think Kelly might have been 3rd or 4th. Kelly was 4th. Spiller, I think, was either 3rd or 4th.
Spiller barely even played last year. I don't know. I guess I'm not sure if I see it. Yeah, I'd like to see it. Of course, Spiller, everybody was talking about Spiller last year along with Rachaad White and some of the other rookie running backs, and boy, we didn't see anything.
No, you're totally right. We didn't see much. I will say this. I was looking at Josh Kelly, his stats. From weeks 13 to 18, he was playing, if you average those all out, about 40% of the snaps. He had multiple games above 40%, and then a couple more around 35%. So he was right around 40%. So they were trying to get someone in there. Now, it didn't translate to much fantasy-wise, but he was getting during that time, about 10 touches a game. So I just don't think he's good enough of a player. Like you can get some players like a Tony Pollard, all they need is 10 or 12 touches and they produce for you. I don't see that, but I guess my guess right now, not having seen any preseason games, if you were to choose a handcuff for Eckler, it is Kelly, but I can easily see it being Isaiah Spiller or Kelly. But my guess right now is Kelly, just because they used him. They're trying to get him involved there the last 6 weeks or so. So, yeah, not much to talk about there. They seem like more like waiver wire guys, but the receivers are obviously very interesting. Keenan Allen obviously leads the pack. I don't think there's any debate there. Mike Williams and Quentin Johnston are kind of the 1, 2, 3. And then it goes even deeper with Josh Palmer and Jalen Guyton, hopefully back healthy. Probably, we'll get to those guys later. We'll start with Keenan Allen. I think I heard it's like 4 or 5 or maybe 6 straight years of Keenan Allen's been like a top 13 PPR receiver, which is just insanely consistent production. You know what you kind of get with Keenan Allen? He's not going to be very unlikely that he's going to be a top 5 guy, but he's just going to put up a consistent floor for you. He's going to be a top 15 receiver. He's going to give you 12, 13, 14 PPR points a game. Last year, when he came back from his injury, he was actually he averaged 13.1 points a game, which in half PPR, that puts you in like the top 10 pretty easily, top 8 probably. So, Dad, Keenan Allen, I'll tell you where he's going here, and you tell me if you're okay with it. He's going wide receiver 19, 45th overall. So you're looking at mid-round 4 for Keenan Allen. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I think I'm okay with that. I mean, as long as he doesn't get hurt, which, that's everybody. So, but when he's in there, I mean, that's what happened to the Chargers looked kind of horrible last year. And, they had wide receiver injuries, Justin Herbert, ribs, and, they made the playoffs and stuff like that. But when these guys were injured, when Keenan Allen wasn't there and they didn't look good at all. So hopefully he can stick with it. I mean, he's never had double-digit touchdowns, so don't expect that. But as far as the receptions, very easy for 100 receptions and 1,000 yards.
Yeah. And, he has had a tick up with Herbert and the touchdowns. He had 8 in 2020, which was, tied for his career high. 6 in 2021, and then he had 4 last year, missing 7 games. So he probably gets to that 6-7 range again. So you can count on 6 to 8 touchdowns. If you just look at from 2017 to 2021, he had his lowest target year was 136. So he's well over 140, 150 a couple of those years, which is insane. He had 90 last year in 10 games. That's 9 targets a game, which is a really, really good number. You do the math, right? 9 times 17, you get 153 targets. So anyone who's getting 120, 130 targets are super valuable. Keenan Allen's getting 140, 150. I honestly don't see it changing. I think he'll age pretty well. He wins with his route running, not with his speed or power or anything. It's his route running, and I don't have anything to back this up necessarily, but it doesn't just feel like those kind of things last a little longer. Like Larry Fitzgerald led the NFL in catches in I think age 32, 33 years old, because he's just an amazing route runner, and Keenan Allen's right up there with that. They're also the hype's coming out of the training camp, like they're using them, moving them around more, watching CeeDee Lamb film and moving them around the formation. So I love Keenan Allen. Like, it doesn't, and especially when you say wide receiver 19, it's like there's no way in hell he's going to finish worse than wide receiver 15 if he's healthy all year, right? Like, it seems almost impossible in my opinion. So like, it feels like again, health is an issue, maybe. That being said, like from 2017 to 2021, he missed like 2 games. It was just last year. He was kind of injury prone the beginning of his career, but for 5 straight years he missed 2 games in 5 years, and then last year he had the hamstring issue. So I don't think he's necessarily an injury concern. But yeah, doesn't it just seem like impossible for him to finish outside of like top 15, Dad, if he's healthy all year?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. So, moving on, Mike Williams. I think a lot of people have maybe a love-hate relationship with Mike Williams. Yeah, he's a little bit of a tougher one. High draft pick, hasn't lived up to the hype, but hasn't been a bust by any stretch of the imagination. His best year was in 2021. I think he was a top 12 receiver. And then last year, 900 yards in 13 games. So he was on pace for over 1,000 yards. I think people were expecting kind of a step up, including myself. Dad, how are you feeling on Mike Williams this year? Is he a guy that you want on your team? Do you kind of want to avoid? He's wide receiver. I'll tell you this: he's wide receiver 26. So you could get him as like your 3rd receiver. I don't know. How are you feeling about Mike Williams?
Yeah, I'd be happy with Mike Williams as my 3rd receiver. We've seen some things. We've seen some good things out of him. We've seen he makes some ridiculous catches and he ends up hurting himself, and last year, with the last game of the season, he broke his back, because the coach played him. But anyway, he's a touchdown. He's a touchdown maker. So big guy, 6'4", But if he's in the game and he's playing,
yeah, he's good when he plays, essentially.
Yep.
And if you want to throw out the injury concern, like maybe he's a bit more of that. Again, like besides last year, he had 4 straight years where he missed 2 games. I'm sure a few of those he went out early, which always affects people. Like that's even more of a killer when you get knocked out in the game because you're being started. But here's the reality of it is this team's going to throw the ball top 5 in the league. I think there were 2 last year. They're going to throw the ball. They're going to have this top 5 most pass attempts. You have one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And he's another guy where they're moving him around the formation. They're moving him on the outside, on the inside, in the slot. They're moving him around in motion. When you're in the slot and you're 6'4", 220, and you can run pretty well, you're a mismatch, essentially. So he's a guy that I am really getting excited about. And another thing is, actually went back and looked at every game that Herbert had an ADOT, average depth of target, of 8.5 or more. 8.5. If you finish the year with an 8.5 average depth of target, meaning on average your targets you're throwing the ball 8.5 yards or more down the field, you're going to be in like the top 10, top 12. That's like in the upper half. He only has 10, which is kind of crazy because Herbert, you think big arm guy. He only has 10 in his 3-year career, but Mike Williams hits on like 6 or 7 of those games. His big games come from when Herbert's pushing the ball down the field, and it makes sense, right? This is Mike Williams' wheelhouse, is down the field guy. He's not a yards after catch guy. He's a make that big catch, push the ball down the field, be a mismatch down the field type of guy. And so if they plan to do that, which is what you're hearing, pushing the ball down the field, that could really, really benefit Mike Williams. So I'm excited about him. Again, he's going as wide receiver 26. So theoretically, he's going in round 6. So theoretically, you could start your draft with 2 running backs and 4 receivers. Mike Williams could be like your 4th receiver, right? And like you said, Dad, I'd love him as my 3rd. I'd love him as my 4th receiver, right? Like,
absolutely,
maybe that guy that hits maybe he has a bad game, but then he can win you weeks, right? If he's your wide receiver 2, you're a little nervous. So that's kind of the story of Mike Williams there. Quentin Johnston, their first round pick. He's actually not going too much further down the list. Okay, no, he is 121st overall. I feel like I've seen him go higher. So he's going in like round 10. Do you see him being fantasy relevant without an injury to Mike Williams or Keenan Allen?
I don't know if you believe training camp video. You think the guy's going to the Pro Bowl or something like that, but we know how that works. Yeah, I didn't like the draft choice. I hope the guy makes me eat my words or something like that. Let's hope the Chargers can integrate him into the offense. If he's wide receiver 3 on the Chargers, that'll be really good. Do I have enough guts or balls to draft him? I don't, pretty much, But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it all pans out.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to invest too much in him. I mean, rookie receivers, especially first rounders, they tend to hit at some point in the season. I'm okay with drafting him. Again, you are spending a little bit of a high draft pick. 10th round pick it's not nothing on a guy that may need an injury to be productive. But one, if he does have that injury, he's going to be one of the better plays that you can play, right? If Mike Williams or Keenan Allen goes down. And then two, I do think there's a path for him to be relevant fantasy, even without an injury. I mean, if you just think, okay, Herbert, 4,800 yards, like Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, let's just say they make up 2,400 of those, right? They each get about 1,200. So now you have 2,400 yards. You think, okay, to the tight ends, you're going to get 700. To Eckler, you're going to get 600. So there's 1,300, right? So you have like 1,100 yards for basically like Josh Palmer, Guyton, and Quentin Johnston. So I could see like Quentin Johnston getting like 700 of those. The thing is, he's going to need touchdowns. If he can somehow be a big touchdown guy, then there's his fantasy value. If he can put up a 750 yard, 8 touchdown season, like he's going to be at least worth something. And then there's always that, upside of okay, someone else got hurt, or Keenan Allen or Mike Williams got hurt. So,
by the way, Charger fans, Keenan Allen or Mike Williams, or maybe both, might not be on the team next year. They have pretty good paychecks. They're pulling in $20 million a year. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see how that pans out. That's next year.
Yeah, they have huge cap hits. So it could be their last year, which is a part of the reason why they got Quentin Johnston. You got to kind of prepare. You can't replace your whole receiving room in 1 year. And if they lose their top 2 guys without bringing someone else in, right? You got Josh, back to Quentin Johnston. I'm okay if you're in the 11th round, you want to take a shot on him. The receivers, he's going around Zay Flowers. He's going around Zay Flowers, another rookie who's on a team where there's a lot of options, right? Jameson Williams is going around the same, and we talked about Jameson. You might get 1 week in the first 10 weeks out of Jameson. Rashad Bateman, Alan Lazard, Adam Thielen. So it's like, okay, like these are just like players, whereas like there's a lot more upside with Quentin Johnston. So those are the type of players in the 11th round. It's like, okay, I may not be getting much production the first 4 or 5 weeks, but he could kind of be like help you win leagues type of player. So if he's good, and we're assuming he's over Josh Palmer, but Josh Palmer's still there, and Josh Palmer is a decent receiver. He's not nothing, right? I think people were a little disappointed because they thought, like Josh Palmer, when Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were missing time, Josh Palmer's going to hit and he didn't necessarily hit as much as we thought. But I don't think he can be the main guy. But he's a pretty good second, third option for a team. Like he's not a bad receiver at all. So there's a chance that Josh Palmer is the third guy on this team, right? It's not out of the realm of a possibility. Anything else on the receivers, Dad, before we move on to?
No, not really.
Okay. And tight end, we have Joe Everett. Solid tight end. Problem is, on this type of team, he's not going to be the focal point. He's not going to be the first, second, probably not even the third option. He might be the fourth option on the team. So very limited. It kind of reminds me of like, the Bengals tight end situation where you have three guys who are clear cut. They're the top three targets. Everett, I like. He can take over games. We saw in that playoff game before he got hurt against Jacksonville, he was kind of dominating that game. Then he got hurt. He has spike weeks. He's a tight end that I like to take if I don't get one of the top guys. Do you agree with that, Dad, or are you kind of going for someone with more potential? Dad, you there? You're muted.
Yeah, I like Gerald Everett, and he's one of those guys. Tight end, got about 500 yards, and he catches the ball pretty good. So, where he fits in your pecking order. If he's your tight end number one, then you better be strong in other areas, But
that's kind of the appeal of him, is like he can be a top 12 tight end. I imagine if he stays healthy, he's going to be tight end 12, 11. And the appeal is you can get him at the end of your draft. You don't have to spend anything and be good in all other areas.
Where did he fit in tight end scoring or rankings last year?
Last year, I think did he miss time last year? I'm going to check right now. I want to say he was in the top 12. You just give me a second here. But the thing about what I like about Gerald Everett is just like he can have those big weeks. Like he's good enough to where he can have those kind of week winning weeks. Yeah. So Gerald Everett finished his tight end at 15 overall. He missed 2 games. He averaged the same amount of points as like Dalton Schultz, Tyler Higbee, Cole Kmet, and all those guys were in the top 10. So if he played those 2 games, he would have been a top 10 tight end. He is just another guy, kind of at the tight end position. He's a good player, but again, he can get you a 15-point week in a half PPR league, which, because of the offense he's on, that's the appeal. I'd rather have, 4 or 5 12 to 15-point weeks and then some 5 or 6 weeks rather than 16 7-point weeks, right? Like give me those 4 or 5 12 to 15-point weeks rather than just giving me 7 points every week. So that's kind of where I'm at with Everett. Solid player. Parham, Trey McKitty, these guys have been on the team for a while. We kind of, I thought Parham was going to take a step up next year, last year, but then they brought in Everett and that kind of killed it all. So anything on those guys, Dad, you want to mention?
Not really. McKitty, he was drafted kind of early a couple years ago, but
he was a high draft pick.
3rd rounder, and that's after they lost Hunter Henry, but nothing's come out of it so far.
Yeah. Overall, Dad, Chargers, 2nd in the division, 3rd in the division. Where do you think they finish?
Yeah, should be a wild card team. 2nd in the division, definitely behind Kansas City. They always play Kansas City kind of tough. They play the Raiders tough, and the AFC West, like most divisional foes, they play each other really tough. So
Yep. Well, they built their team to compete against Kansas City, you know, and that was what was frustrating about losing to Jacksonville. Was like they could give Kansas City a run for their money in the playoffs, but didn't materialize. So, anyways, we're gonna end it there. As always, if you could like the video and subscribe, that'd be fantastic. And we're gonna be back with the Los Angeles Rams. Catch you guys next time.
Fire the coach.